You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, sometimes the international. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to Wednesday. There's no food on this one. There's just a camel. Play it, man.
Uh-oh. Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Mike. What day is it, Mike? Leslie, guess what today is?
It's hump day.
Woo woo! Yes, it is. Absolutely. You are halfway to the weekend, and aren't we all glad of it? Hope you survived the weather okay last night. That was some big doings in certain parts of our listening area. I know it came across my house. Wow. But anyway, we are here. It is Wednesday. By the way, happy Ash Wednesday. Blessing on Ash Wednesday to all my Catholic ruffians out there. The season of Lent is upon us. And JP's on the board. Hey, buddy, how are you?
I'm good, but I just have to say, you mentioned today not being food, but according to John from Huntsville, I think it was, that a camel can fall in line with the food.
Yeah, we're not having camel burgers. There's no camel burgers. There's no camel steaks here. No, that's just Fred the camel telling us it's hump day. We can't do that. All right, hey, we got a great show laid on for you. Coming up at 4 o'clock, you know the deal, 4 o'clock on Wednesdays. The Grand Council with my brethren Jeff Poore and Dale Jackson. So that's coming up at 4. And then I got a triple dipper just filled up with stuff, so hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. First out the gate, I'm just calling it The Speech. Everybody knows which one I'm talking about, too. The Speech, because it may be forever known as just The Speech. Just like last year we had, The Debate. Well, we know what that is when I say it. This one was The Speech. We're going to break it down. We're going to talk about it in detail. We're going to dialogue on it. I'd love to know if you watched it, what you thought, what you saw. But yeah, last night's speech to the joint House of the House and or joint session of the House and Senate. Good stuff. And we'll tell you all about it. The Speech, number 1, Triple Dipper. Number 2, the border battles. There's been some things happening. I'm glad I held that one until today, because even today, we have now seen the sanctuary city mayors having to come up and testify before Congress and get put on the hot seat. Why didn't that ever happen in 3 years, 4 years of Biden? Pray tell. Anyway, border battles, all the things, we'll tell you all about it and the numbers and how they play out as number 2 on the Triple Dipper. And then number 3, the Doge doings. Y'all, if you watched The Speech last night, you know what I'm saying when I mentioned that Doge was front and center at one point, and all the things that have been happening with Doge going into effect have been of an epic level. So, yep, Doge doings, number 3 on the Triple Dipper. We'll break it all down. All right, well, let me move on over to the Rightside Way opening monologue, and I'll remind you guys every single day, the Rightside Way brought to you by attorney Stan McDonald. He's a partner at the law firm of Wilmer & Lee. Stan McDonald's a 30-year practitioner of the law. He's a good one, and I'll tell you all about him more in just a minute, but he is the daily sponsor of the Rightside Way monologue. All right, I don't know about you, but I watched the full speech given by Trump last night to the joint session of the House and Senate. And y'all, it was an epic speech. It was. It marked the 5th time that he's delivered such a speech to Congress. It was also the longest speech ever by a president from the floor of the House, and it ran almost a full 2 hours. I mean, think about that. He's only been in office a little over a month, but it took 2 hours to recite all the things that have been done in that short amount of time. But as I watched, I could not help but remember the last time a president gave such a speech. It was Joe Biden, and it was exactly 1 year and 3 days ago. 1 year and 3 days ago, and the contrast between the two was stark. Look, I remember years ago when I was a kid, my dad was still in the Army. We were stationed in London, England. We took a trip to the main continent of Europe, and we went to West Berlin. And I have distinct memories of standing on the platform at Checkpoint Charlie and looking over the Berlin Wall into East Berlin, and then turning around and looking into West Berlin. And I could turn back and forth, and it was like going from a black and white movie to a vibrant Technicolor big screen IMAX. I mean, one was drab and fretful, and the other, well, it was vibrant and full of life. And that, my friends, is exactly what it was like to watch Joe Biden speak a year ago and now compare it to Donald Trump. Drab and dreary and full of threats versus optimism and hope and affirmation. So I thought I'd look back in the Rightside archives and see what my thoughts had been in the aftermath of last year's speech and compare them forward. Maybe I'm also a glutton for punishment, but I thought it was an important exercise in comparison. So whether or not Biden ever gave a good speech is really dependent upon your political views. It's hard to be a conservative pundit and find last year's Biden speech to have been a good one. I mean, if I just took it on policy points alone, I'd have to say that Biden's last speech was an epic fail. But then I'm not a liberal progressive or a partisan Democrat. For the left side of the aisle, Biden's last speech was meat and potatoes. It was all the things. But as someone who views things from the right side, it was served up like pablum. It was like bland hooey. It was leftist talking points. Okay, but that was the content. You know what's striking? Let's be honest. This last State of the Union we had from Joe Biden, it was not at all about his talking points. It really wasn't about his policies. The world was not waiting with bated breath to hear what he would have to say about his potential last year in office. The world was on the edge of its proverbial seat back then in March of 24 for the simple reason that we wanted to know if he'd be able to get through the hour without falling down. I mean, the level of relief on the Democrats' faces when he stepped away from the lectern was not based in feeling strong about the policies and positions he espoused. They weren't, not at all. Back then, they were just relieved his brain didn't malfunction in mid-sentence and that he knew how to step away from the podium at the end. In that regard, the White House staff and whoever juiced him up for the speech in March of 24, they were the winners. Now you contrast that with last night's speech by Trump. He didn't go on until 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, and he spoke for nearly 2 hours nonstop. He had facts, figures, and he remembered people's names. He was relaxed. He even cracked jokes. He delivered some zingers that were obviously not even in his teleprompter. This is also at the end of a long, full day. A long, full day, by the way, in which he didn't shy away from other appearances and presidential matters that he had to do. He didn't put a lid on the day at lunchtime so he can go prepare for his speech. Trump's stamina versus Biden's stamina, those are apparently two polar opposites. But there was something else about the Biden speech last year that I have to address and then compare it forward. See, I could talk all day about how much I disagree with Biden's talking points, right? But something that no one can deny with any shred of honesty is that he was a horrible public speaker. In that State of the Union last year in March of 24, Biden spent the entire hour literally yelling at America. Literally yelling and shaking his fists at times and scrunching up his face like he was having a complete moment of rage. I mean, you look at the photo shots and the video clips, you can almost imagine him yelling at those darn neighbor kids to get off his grass. The State of the Union is not meant to be an accusation place or a blame game. The platform given to the president is meant to rally the troops and to gather support for measures he believes are working and to make a report to the nation about the state of the nation. Biden and his handlers, they missed that part. They chose to go down the route of browbeating anybody who dared to differ. And for a man who claimed to be the great unifier, well, Joe Biden gave us one of the most rancorously divisive speeches I've ever seen last year. Now, again, contrast that with Trump. He wasn't afraid to call people out. He did it, but did it with sarcasm and wit. And he spent a great deal of his time actually affirming people. How many people sat up there in the gallery, got to hear their names called out? One young man, a brain cancer survivor, was honored with a Secret Service badge. Now, keep in mind, what that also did was it affirmed the Secret Service at a time when government entities are under the gun. So that was huge. Another guy was sitting in the lobby. A young guy was told he was going to be going to West Point. The look on his face was awesome. There were moms and athletes and law enforcement officers and just good, hardworking folks, one of which was from right here in Alabama, who were all encouraged and recognized and loved on by the president during his speech. What a stark, stark difference from what we saw last year. Because, you know, a good speech is as much about tone and delivery as it is about content. You can have the best content in the world and still put your audience to sleep. You can have the greatest diction and a resonating voice, but if your content is lacking and your timing is off, the speech can still be a failure. You can also claim, as Biden did last year, that everything was going great and still make people feel like they were being scolded. Joe Biden's speechwriters last year, they may have put together a litany of potentially strong liberal talking points, but the man they wrote it for has no clue how to engage with his audience. Now look, I'm a fan of speeches. I technically speak for a living, I guess. I've said before that there are great speeches that I love to read or rewatch. Some are real, some are fictional, but they all have the same capacity for not just informing people, but for identifying with the folks that are hearing it. You see, a good speech is about being able to deliver words that go beyond just being mere words. They become like a clarion call, like a call to arms, or a shot heard round the world, not because they were just pretty words, but because of the way they were delivered in such a way that made people want to engage the topic. A good speech hits not just the mind, but the heart. Do you remember the classic 1996 movie Independence Day? It was one of those science fiction save the world kind of movies, but it didn't roll off into some kind of zombie apocalypse with people slipping off into depravity. It was a movie that actually made you feel glad to be an American. It gave us the sense that we could fight off a bear with a switch. It turns out the movie was originally intended to be called Doomsday. How about that? Not Independence Day, but Doomsday. But the screenwriters, they didn't want that to be the message. They knew the wording of the title was key, so they chose a better set of words, but they had to convince the studio bosses. So they added the phrase Independence Day to the end of an epic speech delivered by actor Bill Pullman, who was playing the President of the United States in the movie. And Pullman himself, he went and researched great speeches of history, and he knew that delivery was important. And one of the screenwriters later wrote that he put the speech together for Pullman's character, a speech that was meant to rally and encourage and inspire. But he said that when Pullman delivered it, everybody on the set was still caught off guard. He said none of us were prepared for it until his first rehearsal, and then we were just staring in awe and wonder. In the movie, Pullman, playing the president, he stood in front of a tired, beleaguered, ragtag group of Americans who were trying to figure out how to fight back against an invasion of aliens who had already laid waste to much of the world. And he stood up on a platform, and he began somewhat quietly, and then his words kind of grew in their intensity, and the audience was riveted, and he said what they needed to hear. And he delivered it, not just in words, but in actual tone and timing. At one point towards the end, he said, "Should we win the day, the 4th of July will no longer be known as an American holiday, but as the day the world declared in one voice. We will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. We're going to live on. We're going to survive. Today, we celebrate our Independence Day." Well, that speech, yeah, it's fictional. I know it is. But the studio bosses heard it, and the movie name got changed. It went from Doomsday to Independence Day because of the speech. And was it fictional? Yes. So what? I would still bet, though, that most of you who saw that movie for the first time are ready to whip some aliens with a big stick. So, go back to the thing about last night's speech and last year's speech. What's in a speech? Well, a good speech is about far more than words. A good speech is about delivery as much as content. A good speech moves the hearts and the minds in unison. A good speech has words that resonate, tone that invites the listener, stories that identify with the audience, and timing that hits the mark at the right moment. And in that regard, Joe Biden's last State of the Union was one of the most epic failures ever conjured up before a live audience. But last night, I'll be honest with you, last night Donald Trump spoke one for the ages. And the only thing missing was a mic drop at the end. And that's a wrap for the Right Side Way. Yeah, there you have it. I mean, I'm not even trying to overplay this thing. It was Trump's best speech ever, I think. It was also one in which he was relaxed. He was cutting up. He was having a good time. He could care less what Democrats said or did. And he had a mission. And you could tell he had a mission. And he was bringing people into the mission. More on that. We'll talk about it. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Man, saving the world one soundbite at a time. All right, so I got to tell you real quick about attorney Stan McDonald. So, look, I know the guy personally. I think the world of him. And when I tell you this stuff, I'm not just blowing smoke. Stan McDonald is a 30-year veteran in the practice of law in North Alabama. And I like to tell people, not only will he advocate for your legal needs as an attorney, but listen, Stan McDonald has been in the fray. I mean, like in the mix, neck deep on the issues and the politics that ruffians out there care about. So consider that. He's a right side ruffian himself. But attorney Stan McDonald, he has represented his clients in literally thousands of real estate transactions over the years. He can represent you in any local, state, or federal court. And I like to say that if Stan McDonald's on your side, you're going to have no greater friend. And oh, by the way, likewise, your opponents would have no greater foe. So let me tell you how to get in touch with him, because you might need a lawyer. And in North Alabama, he might be your man. Attorney Stan McDonald at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee. He's an America First family man. Here's his phone number. You ready? 256-479-3020. That's Stan McDonald, 256-479-3020. And tell him you heard about it on the right side. Please, please. I'd appreciate it. No representation made. The quality of legal service to be formed is greater than the quality of legal service for the lawyers. It's just like getting to be just easy.
I know. It's getting too easy now. Maybe we have to make it harder.
If I look down one day and my little bitty script where I have to read that thing suddenly has like an extra word typed into it because of you, I'm going to know something's up. Hey, I got a call real quick. Let me go to that before I run out of time. I got a couple minutes for the break. Brian from Huntsville. Hey, buddy. How are you?
Doing okay, and I'll try to cram a lot in a little here.
No, what's up, man?
A couple of minutes, but, well, that speech, I listened to it through my headphones on the radio. Television puts me to sleep at that time of night. But it put me in a great mood and reflective and everything. And I'm thinking that the last 4 years before this, our administration had our country, we ran 1,000 miles further east from Eden's Gate, running straight away from what our country was founded upon in many ways. Yeah. And that and the gnashing of the teeth of some of the Democrats at that point. So it made me think about that, and it put me in a positive spin, and I really hope and pray that after Donald Trump almost got assassinated, and he turned his head at the last moment, he got hit. And I hope he really is here to turn us back west towards Eden. And on top of that, I hope he realizes that he may be able to turn us that way, but only Jesus can get us back through Eden's East Gate.
Good stuff, man.
I hope his ego doesn't go too far.
Good stuff, man. That's perfect. Thank you, brother. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate you, man.
Sir.
You too.
You.
And on that note, I got a bunch of y'all texting in. I think a few of those texts are very similar to what Brian just had to say. We're going to talk about all of it. Yeah, we're going to number one, the speech. It's just the speech. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. Whew. It goes like from Huntsville all the way back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa all the way back over to Gadsden. I mean all the way down to that prettiest little town on the plains called Auburn, stretching over to Fort Benning. And yes, big old patches of Georgia and Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. All right, let me just jump on in here and I'll ask you. You guys text in if you want to. We're going to be taking text messages here momentarily. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. The speech. That's where we are. JP, you watched it last night, didn't you?
Yep, beginning to end.
So there was no sports games on. Apparently you had a speech to watch.
Well, there were sports. Actually, Auburn dropped a game last night that I did not get to watch because of it.
Right.
So, but no, I had to give the speech my full attention. I was very much looking forward to it, and it lived up to the hype and then some, I would say.
So your impressions of the Democrats during the speech?
You know, everybody, I got to say, everybody's been throwing a fit over the fact that they didn't clap for the 13-year-old brain cancer survivor, Lincoln Riley's family, any of that, which I would agree, that's awful. But at the same time, I kind of expected it because they sat there pathetically and they have no power. And I think it was on display, you know, that they literally just sat there like with their tail between their legs, had their little signs that they thought were doing something when, I mean, it became more evident to me that they are just sitting there lamely with no power, and all they can do is just, you know, throw a fit like what the representative's name is slipping my mind again, the one that was kicked out.
Oh, Al Green.
Al Green,
the caveman.
Yeah, I was expecting one of the Democrats to do that. I kind of thought it would be like Jasmine Crockett or something, but he's par for the course to do that too. So
it would have messed up Jasmine Crockett's nails.
I was expecting a right out of the gate Democrat protest, and then the rest of the speech just kind of like.
I'll be honest with you, when he did that, so for those who didn't see it, Representative Al Green, he's the guy that looks like a caveman from Houston, I believe, Democrat. He came to his feet, and I think he's 78 years old with a ponytail, and started shaking his walking stick, his cane, you know, like an old man, like he's yelling, "Get off my grass!" But he's shaking his cane and yelling at Trump, and Trump just talked right over the top of him. But at one point, you saw Trump give the thumb, like jerk his thumb, like somebody get that guy out of here. and then I've never seen this happen before, ever. But the Speaker of the House interrupted the president and said, "Mr. President, excuse me," and gavelled the crowd, and then called for the sergeant at arms to escort a congressman out of the room. I've never seen that happen before.
No, I haven't either. But I'll say, too, I think during the whole speech, we saw Trump's, how much better he is, not only with the media, but with the Democrats this time around, because he's not getting rattled. He's just simply talking over and through, but he's also firmly calling them out without going too far down. Because we saw the Democrats would kind of bait Trump into him getting, you know, on a rabbit hole, and it was sort of the, quote, bad Trump. But we're seeing now he's firmly calling them out on their ridiculousness, but then moving on along. It's like, y'all aren't even worth my full attention right now, but I'm going to say, like, you know, that's ridiculous.
And they were ridiculous last night. I mean, it was really kind of sad. I mean, I looked at it and thought, okay, there are times when I get it. You're not going to celebrate with the Republicans about a conservative talking point. I get it. There's a policy matter on tax cuts and you don't like them. There's a policy matter on cutting government and you don't like it. Don't clap for that. But there are some things in there that were non-issue, clearly bipartisan potential clapping points. He just, like you mentioned it briefly, he had a young 13-year-old guy up there who was told he had 6 months to live, and that was 6 years ago. He's a brain cancer survivor. And Trump had him recognized and and he's had a dream of being a Secret Service agent. And so, and you can tell this guy's his growth, his physical growth has been stunted. He struggles with some things, and I don't know if he has special needs or not, but you can just tell that this was a moment where he was amazed that he got to be there. And Trump recognizes this brain cancer survivor kid, and the Democrats couldn't even clap.
That's what you call a layup for the Democrats.
That's an easy, we join you in this, young man, we celebrate your life. We had the mom whose daughter was killed by illegal aliens. They didn't bother acknowledging or clapping. We had the Customs and Border Patrol agent who was a hero on the job and got into a gunfight with cartels and saved one of his fellow coworkers. Didn't bother recognizing him. We had, they had the kid that was going to get the appointment to West Point.
Another layup.
He's got a 4.5 GPA out of a 4 scale. What?
Yeah.
And his dad was a police officer who was killed in the line of duty. And his dream is to go to West Point. And Trump appointed him on the spot last night, and the Dems couldn't celebrate.
But like I said, though, I think that just points more to their pathetic state of being right now. But like the Pocahontas poke was perfect. Like that right there is perfect. Like without going too far, but also having a soundbite and then moving on like that.
Yes.
That's why I think Trump this time around is much more experienced, and it's awesome.
But you know what though, the Pocahontas thing, and I'm going to get back to the Dems again in a minute. But the Pocahontas thing, when he did that, he had several things that were not on the teleprompter.
Yeah.
But he was relaxed enough to be able to do zingers like that.
Yes.
And he didn't become an angry man hollering an insult. He was like, I don't know, ask Pocahontas, maybe she cares. And then he went on to the next thing. Yep. And of course, the Republicans are laughing and the Democrats are sulking. Mm. But he did that throughout. I mean, he went 2 hours nonstop on the speech.
Yeah.
So I'm not. Let's take it. Let's say for a minute that let's say that I was neutral and I don't care about Trump per se. I do like him. I do like his policies. I am a fan. But let's say I didn't. That was still a good speech. He won the crowd. He owned the room. He was relaxed. He was able to keep his wits about him. He overcame objections and noise and attempts to disturb him. And he resonated and he hit all his talk. And by the way, he did it nonstop at almost 80 years old till 11 o'clock at night. Biden would have been falling out.
Yep, we would have seen the drugs he was on.
Yes, you would have watched the blood pressure go down.
But also, like about an hour and a half in, I remember thinking, I was like, I feel like he hasn't even covered half of what he's done yet in office. That's the thing. It's like he had so much to report on, and like an hour and a half in, I was like, there's still so much. Like there's the Doge, there's border, and like the Ukraine issue. I was like, you haven't even covered half of it, and we're already an hour and a half in.
He's not even halfway through the first 100 days.
Mm-hmm.
Good Lord. I will say this, John Fetterman, who I am sometimes a fan of, sometimes not. Senator John Fetterman just tweeted out just a little while ago about his own party. He said, in regards to last night and them refusing to clap for the things that were easy, he said, a sad cavalcade of self-owns and unhinged petulance. It makes Trump look more presidential and restrained. We, the Democrats, we're becoming the metaphorical car alarms that nobody pays attention to, and it may not be the winning message. That is quite the text from a Democrat who is basically saying to his own party, we got to quit this. We're losing the crowd. We're losing steam. We're losing the room. We can't go on like this because it's like the car alarm going off at 2 a.m. and nobody cares.
Yeah. And I think that showed what Trump is like, I'm not even gonna give you all the attention y'all deserve right now.
Yeah.
I'll notice you in passing, but that's all you could get because that's all you're worth right now because y'all just pathetically sitting there and doing nothing and have no power over it. So
absolutely,
it was awesome.
I got a call on the line. I got about a minute and a half before I go to the break, so I'll take. Is that Wolverine Dan? Hey, buddy, how are you?
Well, I watched it last night. First, I got a couple takes. Nancy Pelosi, does she need some preparation, H? Because she wasn't looking really good.
I think she definitely needs some kind of denture cream because they kept slipping, man.
Yeah, well, and then Al Green. I'm not speaking of the singer.
Oh,
I'm
no.
speaking of the guy that's from the Flintstones.
That's
okay?
him.
You get rid of his cane and give him a club. Grab Nancy by the hair and drag both you guys out of this freaking place. Okay, that's what I'm talking about.
It was unreal. I mean, he does look like a caveman, doesn't he? I mean, I think he's earned that moniker.
Well, all right. So here's the deal, Phil. Phil, these are representatives of our country. Look at. Well, be an adult. I'm an ex-mailman, okay? I didn't do anything special. I never ran for office, But man, I know how to conduct myself. For crying out loud, Phil.
Yeah.
Is it come to this? Really? Where's the adults? I want to know where they're at. And you know what? Act like adults, for crying out loud. We pay you enough, and you steal enough from taking money under the table from all these spin-offs that you guys, the senators or representatives do and everything. Phil, it's ridiculous. It just makes my blood boil to see this in representing our wonderful country, and they're destroying it.
Yeah, and there's zero professionalism, zero decorum in the way they were acting last night, and that was purely a leadership issue. I mean, I can see, okay, they're going to wear their pink dresses, okay, fine, but all the signs and all the texting and all the walkouts and then Al Green doing his yelling fit and having to get escorted out by the sergeant at arms, that's beyond the pale. There's no professionalism, no decorum in any of that.
Well, the bottom line is this. If you're going to be a professional, no matter who's running the roost or whatever, the bottom line is this. You have to perform at your job. You're supposed to be professional and perform and do what's good for this country. Don't do what's going on now. The exposing all these phony kind of kickbacks and everything to these organizations that they're getting money from. We know what's going on. It's being exposed, and they don't like that. Well, you should never steal from the government, period.
Good call, man. Appreciate you.
See
you. I got so many text messages, so many. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a break right now. We'll take the break. We'll come back, and I'm looking at, good Lord. They're just stacked up. Okay, a bunch of y'all are about to get your stuff read on the air. Y'all stand by. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. So some of y'all are texting in. You must have loved the speech or the things we're saying about it. But I'll say a couple more things before I jump into the text messages. So there were a lot of things that came out of last night's speech that were news breaking. I mean, literally news breaking. One of them was he announced during the speech that U.S. intelligence had acquired and then detained the guy who was the planner and instigator of the bombing at the Abbey Gate on the pullout from Afghanistan debacle that killed 13 U.S. service members. And not only did they find him and detain him, but he was on his way to the United States to face American justice. That was news. That was awesome. That was breaking last night during the speech. Another one that we had that was news breaking was that Zelensky, President Volodymyr Zelensky from Ukraine, you know how bad that went last week, right? Well, he said that we have not only received word from Zelensky, which we talked about a little bit on the air yesterday, that we've got this developing storyline where Zelensky's saying he's willing to come back to the table. He confirmed it last night in the speech and he had the ability, by the way, to make Zelensky look small, and he didn't. I don't know if y'all noticed that. He didn't. He said, we've gotten a very good word from President Zelensky. We look forward to talking with him. But then he also said, we've been on the phone with Putin, and we believe the indications are he's willing to come to the table. That was news breaking. So I saw Trump acting a little bit more magnanimous. He was acting statesmanlike. He could have beat up on Zelensky and said, little small Zelensky man, I made you come back to the table. I put you in your place. He didn't say any of that. He just said, we're glad of it. He sent us word. We're going to be talking to him. And, oh, by the way, we've been talking to Putin. So there was news being, Democrats are beside themselves because they got nothing. They got nothing. Marie from Madison says, Phil, I watched the bits and pieces of the speech last night, but I spent most of the time in prayer, interceding and praying for President Trump because I felt like that's what the Lord wanted me to do. Wow, Marie, you're awesome. That's amazing. Said I prayed and asked the Lord to bless him, to bless Trump and help him deliver the words that needed to be spoken. And I prayed that the foolishness and the folly of the Democrats would be revealed, and I believe it was. I also prayed, she said, for divine protection of everyone there, including the Democrats, because I believe that we're supposed to pray for everyone, even though we don't agree with them. After hearing reports today about the speech, I'm rejoicing because I know that God answered my prayers, and for that I am grateful. Marie, you're awesome. Blessings on you. I need some applause on that, man. That's huge. Shout out to you, Marie. And I know you don't want it because that's your humble spirit, but I'm going to say right now that we need more like you. Thank you very much. And if I've got something going on, I'm texting you for prayer. Matt from Cherokee says, hey, Phil, have you ever noticed that you never see Al Green and Blackula in the same room at the same time? Wow. I should have read that before I read it out loud. Just saying. Matt from Cherokee. Pastor Barnes from Hartsville said, 2 texts. He says, hey, Phil, check this out. And he sends me a link. Can't do it right now, but thank you. And then he says, also, Al Green is disgusting. Okay. And the Dems are showing that they care much more about getting their 30 seconds of TikTok fame or personal publicity than they do about actually representing constituents in pursuit of bettering America. Yeah, I can't help but think, Al Green, he's from Houston. I realize that Texas has got some purple spots, even some liberal spots like Austin. But Houston, how do they keep electing this guy? And I wonder how many people in Houston were sitting back in their dens going, oh, gee, that's our congressman.
Well, apparently, Jasmine Crockett's from Texas, too, so.
That's true.
It's weird how the worst of the liberals come from some of the reddest states. Texas is not the reddest of the red states, but still, it's.
We got Ted Cruz.
Yeah, it's comfortably red, obviously,
yes.
So it's kind of weird that they still spit out some of these ridiculous.
Unbelievable.
Congressmen. There's
Rita from Scottsboro. Rita says, Phil, in regards to the way the Democrats acted last night, when I saw how rude they were when DJ Story, the young kid with the cancer survivor, when DJ Story was told and they couldn't be troubled to even clap for him, it hit me. The reason they couldn't care or clap for him is because they think that all kids should be aborted, and they were mad that he wasn't. What a disgusting bunch of people that I can't even recognize as humans. Wow, Rita. Wow.
Well, you saw the clip from MSNBC, right? Talking about DJ, how I can't remember her name. She talked about, let's hope he's not having to guard the Capitol against Trump. Basically talking about January 6th.
Is that one of my sound bites for today, or I just tweet that?
I think I saw you tweet it, but that may be one of the worst mainstream media clips I've ever seen ever, and that says a lot.
Yeah, I think even Jen Psaki looked uncomfortable in that one. Yeah, it's crazy. June Bug from Hartselle checking in. She said, it was a great speech last night. I truly love the way the president honored American people. And she said, I know Jeff Denard from Decatur. Okay, then June Bug, I got to say this. I was looking for Jeff Denard's contact information today because I want to get him on this show. So if you have the ability to text us his contact information or to tell him that I would like to, tell him Rightside Radio would love to have him on. Anyway, following up with her text, she said, his family has done so much for many in the foster system. What an honor to be recognized by the president. And she said, this might be off topic, but important. I'm afraid that Donald Trump's biggest enemies might be John Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett. Really? JP said something about Amy Coney Barrett for the show. They gave a ruling today that shocks people, apparently, and we'll talk more about that later. But wow. Yeah, I'd be surprised. I mean, Amy Coney Barrett has typically been an ally, and she was appointed by Trump. Just lost my. It's James from Russellville. He says, by the Democrats not clapping last night for anything, do you think maybe that the 13 or 14 that are up for re-election in the midterms do you think they just may have committed political suicide? Some of them do that because they know that their people back home will vote them in if they were even, caught in a compromising position doing things they should never be done. But listen, I don't know. James, it depends on where they are. I think there are some who are going to have problems like Senator John Ossoff in Georgia. Well, that's a fairly red state, somewhat purple in places, and I think he's got trouble. But I think you're going to also see people like, Ilhan Omar, who's going to get reelected no matter what. Bobby from Huntsville says, Nicole Wallace, that was the MSNBC anchor who said that.
It's really disgusting.
Nicole Wallace, it was awful.
The inability to spin or to not spin anything into their own narrative, even if it's a 13-year-old brain cancer survivor.
It was messed up. I can't even get through all these texts. There's so many of them. You guys are amazing. I mean, I got Camel Day text messages flowing like crazy, and I got some more material. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, sometimes the international, and oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, I got to tell you, man, there's so many I'm going to get more text messages. I'll get this one right here. John from Huntsville texted in. He said, "Hey, Phil, fantastic monologue, and I'm glad to say my power has been restored after last night's crazy storm." I'm glad, man. There was a bunch of folks without power. He said, "Also, did you see that crazy Democrat, Al Green?" Yes, we did. And you see every time Trump said something, Democrats held it ridiculous signs? Yes, we did. And he says, "By the way, has Cream bought you that camel steak yet?" No, he hasn't. So
don't know if camel steaks are
I don't
legal.
want a camel steak. No camel steak. Camel steak bad. So what were the top 5 moments? Well, it depends on who you talk to. And there were several. I think my favorite moment, by the way, was, I guarantee you, I think this one was planned, but I guarantee you this is like one of the sound bites of the decade. So Trump's talking about the border at one point. If you missed this, you missed it. I mean, the Republicans laughed out loud and then came to their feet and clapped. And the Democrats just sulked. But at one point, Trump was talking about the border and the fact that we are at record low illegal crossings at the border. And then he basically pointed out, he said, Joe Biden said he couldn't do it without additional legislation. He couldn't do it without new legislation. He said what they really needed was a new president. And the crowd went wild. And his delivery of it was perfect. It's one of those that I think it's making the rounds on social media right now. Another of my favorite moments. Have you got that audio for Dipper One, that first clip? Mm-hmm. Listen, at one point he talked about the transgender ideology and about getting it away from kids. And it was such a moment. He didn't pull punches. He didn't tap dance and try to protect the feelings of the transgender lobbyists. No, he didn't do any of that. He spoke about it clearly and unequivocally, and then he did what I've been saying on the show forever: is you don't do anything to affirm a kid by telling them they're wrong. You affirm a kid by telling them they're already perfect because God made them that way. I want you to listen to this sound clip, audio 1. Go ahead and play it.
I want Congress to pass a bill permanently banning and criminalizing sex changes on children and forever ending the lie that any child is trapped in the wrong body. This is a big lie. And our message to every child in America is that you are perfect exactly the way God made you.
That's such a great line. That's so well done, so well timed, so well said, by the way. And it absolutely is. I mean, it's so refreshing too. I can tell you right now, having been on this show for 4 years, calling those things out and saying those things, and then to have the president say that from the dais last night in his, it really wasn't a State of the Union, but it was. It's an entirely different day in D.C. right now. You know, one of the other things he did too last night that I thought was great, and I got an article here from Fox that talks about what they thought were some of the top moments from last night. Their number 3 on here, I would rank this, was the fact that he honored people who have been impacted by illegal immigration criminals. I'm not talking about the criminal aspect of just crossing the border. I'm talking about when they get here, then they commit more crimes. He honored the lives of Laken Riley and a little girl named Jocelyn Nungary. Laken Riley, of course, most of us remember that one because that's the student from Georgia who was raped and murdered by an illegal alien. And the very first piece of legislation, y'all keep this in mind, everybody in this listening area, one of your elected officials, Senator Katie Britt, was the sponsor of the very first piece of legislation that Trump signed into law when he took office this year, and it was the Laken Riley Act, to make sure that we are protecting people from illegal criminals, and that was an amazing thing for him to recognize her family. And I don't believe the Dems even clapped for that one, did they?
Of course not.
But the other one that they recognized, and it's a name that you look at and go, oh yeah, I don't know why I'd forgotten that story, but it's a horrible story. Little 12-year-old girl named Jocelyn, little 12-year-old girl who was brutally raped and murdered in Texas by 2 illegal aliens from, I believe they were from Guatemala. And he went ahead, the mom was there last night in the gallery, and he recognized her. He commiserated with her. He affirmed the beauty of her daughter and said, we're going to make sure that never happens again. But he said, I want to go one step further. He said, the mom's name was Alexis. He said, Alexis, I promised you we would always remember your daughter, your magnificent daughter. And then he said, so earlier tonight, I signed an order keeping my word to you. And one thing I've learned about Jocelyn is she loved animals so much. She loved nature. So right across Galveston Bay from where Jocelyn lived in Houston, you will now find a magnificent national wildlife refuge, a pristine, peaceful 34,000-acre sanctuary on the Gulf of America named after Jocelyn Nungare. How awesome is that? How honoring, what an amazing gesture to do that, to uplift a mother, which, by the way, it just occurred to me just now. It's amazing, too, that he did that, and the guy who jumped to his feet to scream at him and have to get escorted out by the sergeant at arms is the congressman for that same area. Let that sink in.
No way. I didn't realize that.
That's his district. Unbelievable. We had some other great moments. I mean, one of the things I told you about already was the terrorist behind the Abbey Gate bombing was apprehended as being shipped to the United States. And then, of course, the 13-year-old cancer survivor named DJ. And by the way, DJ, that was a heartfelt moment. Democrats could have clapped for his survivability, his resilience, but he had such a sweet spirit about him. I mean, that kid, he looked like everything was special. And I think it's because he also knows everything is special. In fact, I even saw a recorded interview with him, and it's obvious. He even said, I don't know when my time will be. But he talked about how much he loved the opportunity to live. And so President Trump didn't just honor the kid who was there like in a little police uniform, who had always wanted to be a Secret Service agent. And he knows he'll never be one because of his disabilities related to the brain cancer. But Trump honored him for being there and his resilience, and then said, DJ, we're going to do something for you tonight. He said, and the head of the Secret Service came down in the gallery with an official badge, and they had designated him as an official Secret Service agent and made him a fellow agent in the Secret Service. And the kid was ecstatic. I mean, the hug that he gave to the head of the Secret Service was pretty awesome. It was legit. It was real. There were people having trouble to keep their emotions in check. But you know what's also interesting, though? Think about this. He didn't just affirm that kid and that kid's parents. He didn't just do something uplifting for that person. Trump is doing a lot right now downsizing government, and like the FBI and the ATF and a number of other agencies are all kind of under the gun, and they know it. And what did he do? He honored the Secret Service by having them do this in the gallery. And so what he basically did was he lifted up and esteemed the Secret Service by allowing them to lift up and esteem this kid. That's exactly what you need. That's a statesman right there. That's just cool. Now, I'll tell you, too, there were some folks in the gallery that was interesting. I mean, Elon Musk was there, obviously. We expected that. And then there were a number of others, all the cabinet members, which, by the way, his cabinet is far more robust at this point than it was his last go-around. His cabinet appointees have been appointed at a record pace by comparison to many presidents, to include Biden. But there was also, I couldn't help but notice that Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh from the Daily Wire were there. That's interesting, sitting right next to Riley Gaines. That's interesting. Why is that interesting? Well, because they're members of the media, but they're sitting in the invitation gallery, and they're also non-traditional media. They're pioneers in exactly like the kind of thing we're doing here at Rightside with, both radio, podcasting, written word, content generation, giving people voice for their thoughts, concerns, and what they feel about, conservative policy issues. And they're right there in the gallery, which meant that they were probably there by invitation. And I find that to be cool. Daily Wire, by the way, reports today that moments after Donald Trump delivered his joint address to Congress Tuesday, the chairman of the largest conservative caucus in Congress responded by saying, "We plan to try and cement all of Trump's executive actions into law." So there's a lot of different caucuses up there. There's the Freedom Caucus. There's the new Doge Caucus, and there's one called the Republican Study Committee. It's the largest of the committees. Generally speaking, they're conservative. They might be a little more centrist than the Freedom Caucus. But this Texas Republican, August Pfluger, who's the chair of the caucus, it's the biggest caucus and he says with 180 members, he says they intend to be an influential force in getting all of these things codified into law so they can't be undone by future presidents. Oh my gosh. I don't know. I got a ton of text messages. Can I even get to any of these? What's time I got? You know what? It's already time for a break. Holy cow. All right, you guys keep texting. I'm going to try and catch up as we go. Don't forget, we got the Grand Council coming at 4. I want to jump into some border stuff, though. You guys got to hear what's going on with the border. Y'all, this is huge. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Giving you all the truths you could slap on a bumper sticker. All right, so I got to read one text because I appreciate it. Mark from Red Bay, Alabama said, "This is a great time to be a right-side conservative." Yes, sir. Yes, sir, it is. You know what? We also earned it, brother. We did. We had to get through lean times to get to these times we're in right now. How many times did I say over the last 4 years it took a Carter to bring us a Reagan? And I'm praying that what we're in right now is that it took a Biden to bring us this Trump. And I pray this Trump does not go away. We just stay on this course. And I so agree with several of y'all who have said things like this earlier, including one that I read out in a text today. Pray for him, all right? And I mean that with all sincerity. I do. Pray for him. Pray for protection. Pray for wisdom. Pray that he has somebody that walks alongside him and gives him sage advice. Pray that he does not allow pridefulness to come in, and pray that he can stay on course. And that, how many times in Scripture did we see that God confuses the enemies of the ones who are in the right, and just like strikes them with confusion and they don't know what to do? Well, that's kind of where we are. You also look at Scripture, you could see that, you will look for them and they will not be found. Anybody seen Joe Biden lately? He's gone. He's off the charts. We don't even know where he is. So I'm loving that. More of it, please. But in the meantime, I'm saying pray. Don't forget. Mark from Red Bay, thank you very much. Yes, being a right side ruffian right now, it's all good, brother. So let me switch gears on you. We're going to talk right now about border battles, which, by the way, was a part of the speech last night. In fact, one of those lines, and I held it till I got to this segment, one of those lines that I thought was huge was in the speech. He's talking about the designation of cartels as terrorist organizations. And he said this, he said, "The cartels are waging war on America, and it's time for America to wage war on the cartels." Woo! Y'all, that's the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, who, by the way, his Director of National Intelligence and his Secretary of Defense are both down at the border today. What does that tell you? It's getting real. So I don't know if that means we're going to be putting, Tomahawk cruise missiles in the middle of drug labs, although I would not mind. But I do think it means it's a whole new day, and there's that. Now, one of the things that happened today is that sanctuary city mayors, we have Brandon Johnson from Chicago and Eric Adams from New York City. We had the mayor of Boston, Mayor Wu, I think it is. We had another Mayor Johnson, I've forgotten where she's from, but they're all giant sanctuary cities that are all screaming because they're having to spend so much on illegals, and they're all sanctuary cities. They got called in today and had to give testimony in front of a House committee, and they hated being there. But our own Congressman Gary Palmer from Alabama did a great job in part of his line of questioning. JP, I'm going to call for audio clip number 3. I'm going to bump it into 3 right now, but you got that ready, bud? This is Gary Palmer, who was on the show a few days ago, questioning the sanctuary city mayors. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank the witnesses for being here. I just want to respond about crimes committed by people here illegally. Every crime committed by someone in the United States illegally is a crime that would not have been committed. Lincoln Riley, Ruby Garcia, Rachel Morin, Joycelyn Nungaray, the woman set on fire in the New York subway. These are all assaults, rapes, murders, and other crimes that would not have taken the lives of these people if those people were not here illegally. They were given safe harbor. Now, I want to ask you something. You all took an oath of office. Mr. Adams, did you swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States?
Yes, I do.
How about you, Mayor Johnson?
Yes, sir, I did.
How about you, the other Mayor Johnson?
Yeah, the Constitution of the United States as well as the Constitution of Illinois.
Okay, and Mayor,
Yes.
you did. Are you familiar with the Supremacy Clause? Any of you?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay. Then under the Supremacy Clause, you understand that the laws of the United States take precedent over the laws of Colorado, over the laws of Illinois, over the laws of Massachusetts, and your cities. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir, I do.
But when you declared your cities sanctuary cities, you did so illegally. Do you understand that?
Respectfully, sir, I would disagree with that. We follow
You're
every
disagreeing
federal
with
law.
the law. It's against the law to give sanctuary to people who have committed felonies, and it's a felony to cross the border illegally.
There
You
is no-
gave sanctuary to people who are here illegally. You violated your oath to uphold the Constitution. Because of the supremacy clause, the laws of the United States take preference.
That's that line of questioning. You know, I'm so glad they're finally getting called out on this. I'm so glad. I mean, isn't it amazing too that these policies have been in place and they've never had to be subjected to that line of questioning? Never once. But they were subpoenaed to before, and they all showed up and they sat there. And I'm going to tell you right now, Congressman Palmer was one of many. And there were some, you know, Ayanna Pressley got into a shouting match with Mark Comer, the Republican. And Ayanna Pressley's a liberal hack. She's a radical. You may remember her. She's very distinctive because she's the bald black lady. And she got into a shouting match with the chairman, Mark Comer. But you know what, though? The reality is this. They're finally being asked to be held to account. They're finally having to give answers for why they do what they do. They don't have the luxury of a press conference where they can walk away from the mic. They're having to sit there and be grilled. And we may not like all their answers. I'm just glad that somebody's finally asking them. That's amazing. More on this, the border battles. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. It goes from Huntsville back on over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back on over to Gadsden. There's even that prettiest little town on the plains called Auburn, and even stretch out all the way over there to Fort Benning, Georgia. And yes, there are big old patches in northwest Georgia and Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. I love this audience. Y'all are amazing. Keep the text message flowing, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Hey, before I go any further, though, I gotta plug a couple things. My podcast is out today. Am I correct? Did it get up all right?
Yep.
Oh, good. All right. Production came out perfect. My latest Right Philosophy podcast has just been published. It is out as we speak. Check it out. It's one of the many that we offer here at Rightside Media. There's multiple podcast lines. Mine comes out every Wednesday. This one's called Ukraine on the Brain, and I give you a deep dive into the conflict and to the whys, the wherefores, and to why Trump is pursuing peace. Because if you look at it, historically speaking, things going boom in Europe wind up impacting the United States, and we wind up having to go over there later. So let's don't do that. Let's get peace on the table right now. So anyway, it's a great deep dive to help explain the situation that we're seeing with Zelensky and Putin and Trump. And it's my new podcast that came out today, The Right Philosophy. This one's called Ukraine on the Brain. The other thing I'll point out to you is all things going the way they're supposed to. This Friday, we have actor Kirk Cameron in the studio with us. 2:30, am I right? Right now, scheduled
2:30. Yep.
Yeah. Live in studio, Kirk Cameron in the Right Side studios. He's also doing an event that night in town, which we've been promoting, and we're giving away tickets and we're giving away some merch, his merch and our merch. You want some merch? We got some merch. So merchandise is out there. We got all kinds of hats, T-shirts. We got tickets. JP, they can find it where?
On Rightside Media's Twitter or Phil's personal Facebook. We've already had some takers, so the tickets are running low. If y'all want to, get a chance to get some free tickets, go to Rightside Media's Twitter and retweet and comment on that tweet. But yeah, like I said, we've had some takers, so the tickets are getting slim. So go take a chance and get some tickets right now. But also, if you have bought a ticket of your own, you can text in a receipt of that, and you'll enter a chance to get a Right Side merch bundle. I believe it's a hat, T-shirt, and a mug in that. So
yeah,
go ahead and enter in that as well.
Right Side Ruffians, we got stuff, man. All right, so back on this first dipper or the second dipper, the border battles. So those those chucklehead mayors, the ones who have been sanctuary citying now for a few years and feeling pretty proud about their virtue signals, while their people die, while their coffers are depleted by having to support illegal aliens, while they have crime in their streets. One Chicago alderman is calling out Mayor Brandon Johnson. I got a piece here from Fox News, came out this morning. Chicago alderman said that Mayor Brandon Johnson has no defense ahead of giving his testimony to the Congress. He said, as far as the mayor going to D.C., he's like a lamb going to the slaughter. There's no answer for this. This is an alderman named Anthony Napolitano from Chicago's 41st Ward. He said, there's no answer for this. We should not have been a sanctuary city to begin with. You're punishing taxpayers using their money to help illegals. Bam. Yeah, so the ones you got up there are New York City Mayor Eric Adams, you got Chicago's Mayor Johnson, you got Boston's Mayor Wu, and you got Denver Mayor Mike Johnson. It's about freaking time. Another thing that I think you need to know, though, and Trump talked about this in his speech last night. The speech. Did I mention it's called the speech? The speech. Hello. Can we just talk about the speech? That's all it is. But a piece here I pulled off of Breitbart. It's a thick one. Can you hear it? Can you tell the tone?
I can. It's got some weight behind it.
Got some weight behind it. This is a border report from Breitbart, and it is pretty clear that we are in a record moment in U.S. border control history. Like, record moment. So, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem says that February, get this, you ready? February was the lowest month in recorded history for migrant encounters at our border. Give me some applause on that one, man. That's just amazing. Trump himself came out and said, my first full month in office had the lowest number of illegal migrants trying to enter our country in history by far. I mean, we got to the point that under Biden, remember this? We had 1 month that hit 300,000 illegals in 1 month. That's the ones they know about. I mean, that doesn't even count the ones they couldn't see. 300,000 in 1 month. You know how many there were, JP, in February this year?
A lot more than that, or a lot less than that. Excuse me, not more than that. A lot less than that.
So if the highest was a month where it had 300,000, in fact, December of last year was not that great, but 300,000. What do you think the number was? Just guess.
Probably a little bit less than 1,000.
Okay, now you're making me feel bad. 8,300.
Wow, that's still very low.
8,300. I mean, we're looking at just exponential decreases. In January of this year, there were 29,000. The most occurred in the San Diego sector. Pray tell, why would that be? Oh, I don't know. Sanctuary State, California. The Rio Grande Valley border sector reported the second most encounters, 5,900, and the El Paso sector in Texas, 4,800. So yes, Texas still has some stuff they're dealing with, but the reality is, man, y'all, we have seen an exponential drop. Like it is palpably different right now on the border. They're building the wall right now. They're arming the wall right now. They're putting up drones. They're doing the stuff.
I thought we needed like some groundbreaking history-making legislation to be passed. Surely that was done, right?
There was. It was called an election.
Ah, there you go. Yeah.
How's that for legislating? But listen, lest you think that we're done, we're not all entirely done. So I've got two stories here that are tragic, and they're right here in our listening area. Both from 1819 News, because much of the media in Alabama is not reporting it. But I got this one from just January 6th, so that'd be what we're looking at right at 60 days ago. Elmore County sheriffs in Elmore County, Alabama, said that they arrested an illegal alien for the attempted kidnapping of a young girl. It turns out that when they finally caught him, they discovered he had already been deported 5 times. Deported 5 times, keeps coming back across the border, and they caught him as he was trying to kidnap a young girl. And that happened in Elmore County, Alabama. But then, look at this one. This happened just, 10 days ago. 10 days ago in Marshall County, right up yonder near Boaz, Albertville, Gunnersville, that area. This one occurred in Albertville. A Guatemalan man in the country illegally has now been charged with first-degree rape of a 12-year-old in Marshall County. How anybody can be a sanctuary mayor and know these crimes are occurring because of illegal aliens, you look at it and go, there's no excuse. There is zero grounds. There is, by the way, zero compassion on my part for anything you guys suffer as a city because of what you're allowing in. But truth be told, it impacts all of us because it's not like they come to Chicago and stay in Chicago. They wander around freely. They're given free rein, and then they're not being held to account, and then they commit crimes like this. Not all of them. I know that. I know that not every person who crossed the border is a rapist. I get that. But you know what? The fact that any of them are is enough. I don't care if it's 1,000 or 1. It's too many. Got a piece here from ICE's website. ICE's website. That's right. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement's website. Right here in our listening area. Tennessee Bureau of Investigation led a 4-count indictment which was unsealed in the Middle District of Tennessee, charging 8 defendants with ties to Tren de Aragua in Nashville. Take note, Tennessee. Take note, North Alabama. That's right outside of the reach. I mean, some of y'all drive to Nashville on a daily basis. There's Tren de Aragua, and they just had 8 Venezuelan illegals with ties to Tren de Aragua arrested and charged with transnational commercial sex crimes and sex trafficking in Nashville. They got all their names. They got their ages. They're all military-age males, too, by the way. And they basically, they were so brazen, they had online commercial sex websites and sex trafficking, and they're all here illegally making money for Tren de Aragua. Listen, but take note of this. They were caught. They were caught. And I don't believe that arrest, that indictment, I don't believe that would have happened a year ago. I don't think it would have. But
if he would have been arrested, he would have been released shortly after.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Released on their own recognizance, probably no bond. It's also weird, too, is when you see there's been a lot of talk about militarizing the border. Well, the south side of the border is getting a lot of beefed up military presence. So the Mexican National Guard, and that's not the same as our National Guard. I don't think that's like a reserve force. I think that's just like they're literally the Mexican National Guard. But anyway, the bottom line is one of their generals, Hector Jimenez Baez, the state coordinator for the Mexican National Guard in the Baja California district, actually praised President Trump's efforts the other day. He said, I think President Trump's doing a great job. And he's got 3,000 troops on the border doing exactly what President Trump asked for, please. 3,000 of his troops in the Baja region trying to secure the border and do what they can to slow the trafficking of fentanyl. Now, I will say this. Tariffs went into effect today. Yep. Tariffs on Mexico and Canada. Trump said, thank you for what you're doing to sort of beef things up. But just so you know, we don't think you've done near enough on fentanyl. And so tariffs go into 25% tariffs. Am I right? 25%? I think it is. 25% tariffs put in place effective today on imports from Canada and Mexico. We've already got companies that are moving their operations out of Mexico into the United States to avoid tariffs. What you got, bud?
No, it is 25%.
25%? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, good. I may not remember what I had for breakfast, but I can remember stuff like that sometimes.
Well, I mean, it's been spewed by the left on how this is going to end the economy for ever since it was announced. So it's
cats and dogs living together.
It's probably just been ingrained in your brain from that. And how he crashed the stock market yesterday.
Crashed
apparently.
it.
Yeah.
Crashed it. How dare he crashed it? I mean, did you see the Biden economy, by the way? Mm-hmm. And you know what cracks me up is they're trying to blame Trump for eggs. Can we go back, please, to the fact that started under Biden? Thank you. Thank you very much. I mean, I don't know where do I want to stop on that? I got so much stuff here. The border, here's the bottom line. The border is securing. I won't call it done because there's still some people crossing over, but y'all, it is an entirely different day. We are watching right now the amount of people coming over in a month that we used to see come over in an hour under Biden. That is awesome. We're watching as sanctuary city mayors who've been screaming for federal subsidies to help them pay for giant hotels to house illegals, finally getting called in to Congress to give account for their actions. We're watching as President Trump is declaring the drug cartels to be international terrorist organizations and declaring that we will go to war with them if we have to. We are also watching right now as criminal aliens are actually being interdicted. And I don't think that was happening before. I mean, so it's a whole new day. Listen, tell my caller, if you would, that I got to take a break because I ran long, but I'll get that person right after I'll tell Lee I'll get him right after the break. All right, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. Hey, by the way, I'm about to go to the phones, but let me just remind you guys, we got a new merchandise store up on the Rightside Media website. We got coffee mugs, we got hats, we got T-shirts, and one of my favorite things of all time, we got the Bulletproof Influence glasses. These are highball glasses that have the Rightside Media logo that says Bulletproof Influence right under it, and they have an embedded 308 bullet in the glass. It's a Bulletproof Influence glass. You got to check them out. They're all at the merch store on our website at rightsidemedia.org. So check it out, rightsidemedia.org. Going to the phones. Hey, Lee from Huntsville, how are you?
I am good. And I want to say my Right Side shirt is the softest shirt. I don't know where you got those shirts, but they are so soft.
Awesome.
Are they not?
They are.
Yeah.
They're like, yes, they're like comfy cozy, but they're also tough. So there's that.
So I want to give everybody the answer when somebody starts talking and complaining about eggs and President Trump. I just want to give them the answer that they need to respond with. I have chickens, and I understand how chickens work, okay? And when this whole bird flu thing that they've been trying to ramp up now for quite some time, the Biden administration in November and December had millions of laying hens preemptively slaughtered. Cold is what they call it, but that's what it is.
Cold.
To prevent the spread of bird flu. And it takes, if they're the white eggs in the grocery store, they're white leghorns that lay those, or any leghorn. They're the white eggs, and they won't start laying until about 4 months. And, maybe a couple weeks after that, they'll really get into laying. So it takes quite some time once you've culled several million birds to get them fully grown and back into laying again. And the government paid these people to cull them. So it's no skin off their back. So they cull them, they get a lot of chicks, and they're trying to build back up. So you'll see in about 4 months, or maybe like 2 months now, you're going to see a big uptick again in egg production.
Well, I mean, I would hope so.
Nothing to do with President Trump.
I went to the store. Charlene and I were at Publix, I think it was, together, and I've never seen this before, but there were no eggs at all. And I just saw somebody last night, a friend of mine on social media, who posted a picture of a carton of eggs, and he said, "Because I love my wife, I got her something special," and it was a carton of eggs.
I've become people's good friend because I always have eggs.
Wow.
But yeah, that's what I'm telling you. And the brown ones, that's from a breed that takes even longer. So then you're looking at more like 5 months. So I'm just saying, this has nothing to do with President Trump, and he cannot make chickens mature any faster.
Thank you.
The egg production will come back online.
Thank you, Chicken Lady. Thank you very much. We appreciate the heads up.
You're
All right. Have a great day. We'll see you. Hey, real quick, we're going to hit the break where I know it. And don't forget, we're going to have Grand Council coming up here in just a few minutes. A couple of last thoughts with the last minute here before I go to the break. On the border, just know this. Defense.gov, Dateline 3 days ago, the Pentagon is now deploying an entire Stryker brigade. That's something. And an aviation battalion to the southern border. So we already have troops down there. But a Stryker brigade combat team, that's like a mechanized force with about 4,000-ish plus soldiers. And so that's going to be significant. The Stryker is a wheeled armored vehicle, and it's designed to be highly mobile. But the Stryker brigade combat team heading down, I believe they're coming from the 4th ID out of Fort Carson. So there's that, and an aviation battalion to go with them. And then on top of it, there's also a report, and this one came out of, where is that piece? I've got it right here. Daily Caller. Daily Caller says that intelligence shows that there's been a flurry of drug busts and arrests, leaving cartel bosses having to scale back their operations. And that one individual, a high-ranking member of the Sinaloa cartel, spoke to the New York Times anonymously and said, "You can't be calm. You can't even sleep because you don't know when they'll catch you. The important thing now is for us to survive." So if that's the case, if that's real, I hope it is, I hope the drug cartels are quaking in their boots. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, coming up next, the Grand Council. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, sometimes the international. No, yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to Wednesday at 4 o'clock. You know what that means. Wednesday, 4 o'clock. It's time for the Grand Council. So I am going to call the roll. Let me turn southward first from FM Talk 106.5, host of the Jeff Poor Show. Also, by the way, does work with Breitbart, Lanyap, and he's the editor-in-chief for 1819 News. Jeff Poor, are you there?
I am present.
You are indeed present, and we're glad of it. Thank you very much. And then turning northward in a proxy vote today, we have subbing in for the illustrious Dale Jackson, we have the Grand Poobah of Newsaw across the southeast. That would be our buddy Yaffe sitting in right now from Talk 102.3 in Chattanooga and also with WVNN out of Huntsville and does work with Yellowhammer. Yaffe, are you present?
I am here and glad to be here.
You are here and I pronounce a quorum, so hit it, JP.
Assemble the Grand Council.
Ba-ba-da. Ba-da. All right, we're back. Round one, Grand Council. First question, Jeff Poor, what do you got?
Got to break a little news on your show here. The Rules Committee right now, it sounds like tomorrow the much ballyhooed veterans bill is going to the House floor, which tells you they probably have the votes in the House.
Yeah.
What I want to know is if it does pass, and assuming it passes as is, it passed in the Senate, how big do you think the governor's signing ceremony will be for this piece of legislation?
I'll be honest with you, man. This is the weirdest bill because I can't figure out what the overwhelming desire is to see this thing passed, and yet the governor is not out front giving speeches about it. This doesn't feel like an agenda item. This doesn't feel like something she's getting in front of. And so signing ceremony, if she's smart, if it passes, she'd sign it quietly in the back room and just let it be. But I don't know if she'll do that or not. Yaffe?
I'm going to say there won't be a signing ceremony, but there'll be like a tweet, a picture, kind of maybe put on social media. And that'll be it. I don't know if we'll get much more than that.
Well, you know, Andrew Jones and Ed Oliver are going to want to be have their picture made. So it might be the two of them with the governor in her office.
Something like that, yeah.
I don't know about that. I don't know how proud they will be of it. There may be a victory lap, but I'm going the other direction. I think it's going to be a big deal. I think she's going to bring out the National Guard or something. This is going to be a big one if she gets her way, because this is what she wants. This is like the end-all be-all.
Well, it is, but let me ask you this. You're in Montgomery more than we are right now, so is she literally in front of it? Is she being physically present, or is she just sending her people across the street to talk to the legislators?
I mean, she's sending her liaison, and it's her press people. I mean, you got Todd Stacey downstairs, who's like essentially propaganda for KIV, which is just fine. That's what's going on. She's not out in front of anything, which is, to put out a tweet or whatever, but that's not her.
No, it's not.
I don't think I've said anything too crazy when I say that, but that's what I think's going on.
Well, I think somebody in her cabinet got a burr under their saddle for this issue and decided they were not going to lay down on it, that they were going to press forward on this. Didn't matter what anybody said. And this one has enough of what I would call antagonistic, energy to where somebody's going to feel it later. And I think that's just fair to say. I don't know if it's going to be one that causes all kinds of primaries, but I think there's going to be somebody that has a veteran who protested this, who felt maligned, and they're going to run against somebody. So you wait and watch. But anyway, all right. I'll tell you what. Welcome to the floor, Yaffe. I'm giving you next question. What do you got?
All right. I think it's a simple one, but maybe not. My question is, after that display by the Democrats during the speech last night, and then, of course, the display by the Democrats by voting against protecting women's sports, My question is, will the Democrats ever learn their lesson when it comes to why they actually lost the last presidential election? Or are they just going to double down on this stuff?
Well, it's what a great question. So the bottom line is this. They've got some of their chief pundits out there, like, Bill Maher and still Carville, claiming that they better do a course correction. And of course, Carville was there back in the day when Clinton did his, turnaround to try and regain some ground. But the reality is this: I don't think they can right now because they are so far to the left, and they are so antagonistic towards Trump that it's almost as if they are blinded to it. But they're also there's a huge amount of hubris and pride involved in this. They would have to literally admit we were wrong, and here's why we're correcting. So anything they do is going to be subtle, and it's going to be just kind of in dribble drabs. I don't think they're going to make a party course correction. Jeff, what do you think?
No, I agree with that. I don't think they're going to do anything different than what they've been doing. Because they just don't have any ideas. And I don't think they're quite there, quite ready to stake out a claim somewhere that would be like, this is our policy, anything other than transgender women should be in girls' locker rooms or whatever, and that's our idea of diversity. I mean, they can't deviate from their core ideology because they went so hard in the paint for it, and they're afraid that if they give, it's going to damage their credibility. And I mean, the whole house of cards collapse, right? So
yeah.
That's their problem right now.
It's your own question, Yaffe. What are you thinking?
I think there are some in the Democrat Party who really are trying to get them to change. You had mentioned Bill Maher, but John Fetterman, he put out a tweet kind of saying, look, this is basically saying this is why Trump won. But I think you're right. The problem is their whole platform has been based on DEI woke stuff, especially for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So they would have to completely rip up their old platform, put together a complete new platform. And I guess that's pretty tough. So they're just going to stick with being anti-Trump and Musk right now and think that works for them.
I saw Fetterman's tweet, by the way. I even read it out on the air earlier. But at the same time, he voted against the bill to keep men out of the women's locker rooms and in women's sports. I mean, the guy's a mixed bag of monkey nuts. I don't know what's happening. Sometimes he's there and sometimes he's not. But all right, we got about 2.5 minutes, so let me jump on my question here real quick. Will Ainsworth, in a not so subtle attempt to say, "Hey, I'm running for governor," without saying, "Hey, I'm running for governor," tweeted out this morning that he's getting in shape because the 2026 governor's race might be shaping up to be one for the history books. So I got some thoughts on this, but is he trying to scare Tuberville off, and does it even work? Because Tuberville, I think, has name ID. You first, Yaffe.
I think he might be feeling things out, maybe. I can't imagine he's trying to scare Tuberville off because that wouldn't work. It's basically, it seems to me, it's Tuberville's to have. As much as I really like Lieutenant Governor Will Ainsworth, it seems like it's Tuberville's to lose if he decides to get in.
Which I think is the reason why Ainsworth is getting out early, but I got another thought on it. But go ahead, Jeff. What do you think, man?
I think he has to get out right now. I mean, he's been running for the seat forever, and he's probably got commitments. I know they can't exactly fundraise, but he's probably got commitments from some very wealthy people in this state who don't want Tuberville to be governor. That he's got to show some kind of sign that the door's still open regardless of who's running. And I think some of these gestures are just sort of that. They're important because they'll signal to people that, yeah, I am still in the game here. And I don't know. Tuberville is a big mystery to me. Like, what do we know about him? And there's a lot of excitement around him, but I tell you guys, I dread another one of these circular firing squad type of cycles if it comes down to the two of them running against each other.
Well, I think it would be a big one. I think those are two guys that have name ID. I think Tuberville has the bigger name ID. But here's the other piece of this too. I think Ainsworth doing this. I mean, it's the age-old classic of trying to scare off the competition before they become your competition. But I think that you're going to. Right. I think sometime soon you're going to wind up hearing that a poll's going out, And this was dabbling in the race, and then all of a sudden a poll's going to happen to gauge name ID and favorable, unfavorable to see where he stands, and it's going to literally pit Ainsworth against Tuberville. The other thing I've just heard, though, earlier today is that Will Ainsworth uses the exact same consultant that Marsha Blackburn uses in Tennessee, and that Blackburn did the exact same thing to try and scare off Haggerty the other day, and it worked. And so you're watching the same play being run in Alabama now.
I just don't think it works as well as it does in Tennessee.
Ward Baker's Ainsworth's consultant. That's true. He's the same consultant though for Kelly Loeffler and some others in Georgia, but he's like a ninja assassin when it comes to this stuff.
Well, we'll see where it goes. Right now, a semi-gauntlet has been thrown. But and by the way, that's the end of round one. All right, round one, Grand Council. I got Jeff Poor and Yaffe sitting in with us, so you guys stay tuned. We'll take a break right now. We'll come right back for round two, the Grand Council, on a 4:15 time frame of a Wednesday afternoon. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Saving the world one soundbite at a time. Hey, we're going back for round 2 of the Grand Council, and I got to remind you guys, the Grand Council every single Wednesday is brought to you by DeKalb MD. That's DeKalb MD. I'll tell you more about them in just a minute, but DeKalb MD with locations in North Alabama and 2 in Chattanooga. You're going to want to check them out. DeKalb MD, sponsor of the Grand Council. All right, so fellers, I'm going back to round 2. First question, Jeff Poor, what do you got? Did we lose Jeff? Jeff Rowe?
I think we did want to call him back.
Well, daggum. How about first question, second round? Yaffe, what do you got?
Okay, since we were talking about Tuberville and Ainsworth,
yeah.
The question is, who replaces Tuberville in the Senate if he runs for governor?
Well, it's a great card shuffle here. I mean, picture this. Let's say the polling, the money, the name ID all indicates that if Tuberville decides he wants to run, that it's his race. Does Ainsworth run the risk of pouring all the money into it and having a bludgeoning session between the two of them in the primary? Or does he step back and go, okay, I'll run for the Senate? And I got to look back and see, when is Tuberville up again? Do you recall?
I'd have to look that up. I think it's like around the same time.
It may be. If Tuberville's up again and he's leaving his seat behind to create an open seat for the primary, then I think that Ainsworth would have some decisions to make. Now, I've heard that he doesn't want to do that because he's got young kids and he'd have to go back and forth to D.C.
Yeah, that's what I heard, that he doesn't want to go to D.C.
But, look at Katie Britt. She's back and forth to D.C. and her kids are young. So I don't know, man. I think that's one. I think you'll definitely see somebody from the business community that shows up and says, I'll do it. So all said and done, I don't know, but I think that kind of shuffle right there with Ainsworth looking north to D.C. as opposed to south to Montgomery might be the way to go. Hey, Jeff's back on the line by now. Jeff, I know you're in the State House, and I can tell you firsthand, I know that the connectivity there is awful. But what the question just a minute ago was, if Ainsworth, who runs for the Senate seat if Tuberville runs for governor? What's your thoughts on that?
I would have to put Ainsworth in the list. I think that's a real possibility, even though he said no. Steve Marshall seems like he could raise a lot of federal money.
Yeah,
I think I'd put him down. I think there'll be one or two others, probably some former congressmen. You can see Jerry Carl, or who knows what Mo Brooks, if you're out there listening. Would you flirt with it? I don't know. These are just all hypothetical. So I think those are the ones I'd keep an eye on.
Yeah, I agree with all that. And then I can't wonder down in your area, Bradley Byrne. Is he done with politics? Is he happy being at the chamber? Or is he going to stay out of politics now?
I don't know. He seems pretty happy. I mean, he lives about a mile from where I live, and you see him out and about. I mean, he never even talks about it. What do you run for again? I mean, it never comes up. And usually, like, when I see these kind of guys out and about, and that's the first thing they want to talk about, and he's never even brought it up. So.
Well, that probably means he's realized that he's happy where he is. So who knows? All right, round 2, second question. Now I'm going to you, Jeff. What do you got?
AL.com's editor-in-chief resigned or announced that he's resigning at the end of the month. The AL.com death watch, will there be an AL.com in 5 years?
Not at the pace they're going, man. Wasn't that guy there only like what, 8 or 9 months?
He's here for about right under a year.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're hemorrhaging staff, and they're constantly punditry in the liberal column in a red state. I just can't see them remaining viable unless they have a course correction here sometime soon. 5 years from now? No, I don't think so. Not at the rate they're going. And like I said, it's going to take some change for that to remain viable. Because right now, I think you guys and Yellowhammer and some of the others that are smaller in their regional scope, I think are giving them a run for their money right now, to be honest. Yaffe?
I'm going to say it exists in some form, but probably not its current form. I mean, the domain al.com just seems like it's too good to give up. Somebody's going to want to take that. My guess is someone like, maybe it's almost like with the Washington Post, where someone tries to come in and really course correct, like Bezos is trying to do with the Post. So I think it'll exist. Will it be the same as it is now? Probably not.
So, all right, Jeff, you have your finger on the pulse of all this. What are you thinking, bud?
No, I think that's a good guess. I mean, there's still value in what it is, and somebody can buy it and do something with it. But they have got to rebrand. I mean, if I'm wealthy enough to buy ale.com, I mean, I totally changed the layout. It's going to have a whole different look, and it's still going to be the landing spot. But I think there's a lot of work to do there in salvaging that property.
So the breaking news that I just heard on Rightside Radio was that Jeff Poor is anticipating the purchase of AL.com and redesigning the whole thing.
Hey, somebody wants to give me the money. I will. Somebody wants to throw me the money.
Loyalty's out the door at that point.
Take that challenge. You guys need some jobs. Let me know. We'll remake this thing together.
Hey, last question with less than a minute to go. Let me just ask you this. Are eggs the new currency? Can you buy things with eggs? Is the barter system with eggs, is that the way to go right now? Yaffe, what do you think?
Yeah, all I know is I have a friend of mine who has chickens. Really more friends of my wife. She goes over there, and I'm like, did you get eggs? She'll forget to ask. And I'm like, what? They're giving them eggs for free. Ask.
Jeff, are you getting eggs for your wife for her birthday or anything?
How many eggs do we need? We just go buy them, and they're there on the shelf, and they sit in the refrigerator till I toss them out because they've gone bad or something. I mean, are we really that kind of a society where we're just clamoring for eggs?
It's eggs, man. It's eggs, and you have bacon, and then there's biscuits, and that's the main staples of life.
When was the
right
last time you made biscuit and eggs there, Senator?
Saturday.
How many eggs will buy ale?
Saturday.
That's the question.
Saturday.
That's a better question.
All right, you guys. Appreciate you both. Yaffe, thank you for sitting in for the Ailing Dale. We appreciate it, brother. And we're gone. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Grand Council every single week, and I'll tell you more about DeKalb MD, our sponsor, when we get back. Y'all stay tuned. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. Whew, goes from Huntsville all the way back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa all the way back over to Gadsden. And I mean all the way down to that prettiest little town on the plain called Auburn's. And oh yes, stretching across the border into Fort Benning. That'd be Fort Benning. And, I mean, there's even big old patches of Georgia and Mississippi thrown in, too, just for good measure. All right. Listen, I got to tell you guys, DeKalb MD, they are the sponsor every single week right now of the Grand Council on Wednesdays. DeKalb MD, this is way cool. You're going to want to hear this. Picture this. You need a doctor, but you know how the thing is. You go and you got insurance. Does your insurance have a copay? What do you got to do? They got to bill your insurance, and you never find out whether your insurance covers it all, and all of a sudden you get a bill in the mail. How about this? What if you had a direct primary care that has a network of clinics in North Alabama, Georgia, and Tennessee that, oh, by the way, operates purely on a monthly membership? No insurance. You just pay $75 a month and you got a doc. What? Yes. DeKalb MD. They are based out of Fort Payne, but they also have 2 locations in the Chattanooga area. For $75 monthly membership, you get same day or next day scheduling, no wait time. You get longer visits with your provider. You get after-hours access, no additional cost. You get direct phone numbers to call or text your provider. They'll even mail medications directly to your house. This is crazy cool. So DeKalb MD, they work with you instead of your insurance. And if you need a primary care physician, DeKalb MD, they are primary care with you in mind, and it's a whole lot easier. It's like joining a gym. You join a doctor's office. Wow. You can find out more about them. Here's their website. Just www.dekalb, that's DEKALB, DeKalbMD.com. Schedule an appointment. There you go. By the way, I got a text from my buddy Stan McDonald. That would be the Stan McDonald. See, I told you. He's a right side ruffian. Stan McDonald has texted in and said that the governor's race and the Senate race for Tuberville are at the exact same time. So there's your clarification. If Tuberville decides to run for governor, he is definitely leaving behind the U.S. Senate. Right now, I am personally of the mind that I want to keep Tuberville in my politics somewhere. I just do. I didn't know what to expect when he ran the first time. You know, he'd never been in office. I had no voting record to look at. All I could do was hope. And I have not been disappointed once. Listen, whatever the case may be, I'm hoping Tuberville is somewhere in my politics.
Yeah. And personally, I'm more interested in the Senate race in the governor because I agree with y'all. I think if he runs that job is his. However, I think the Senate race is much more intriguing to me. Ainsworth, if he decides to change his mind, or Marshall, or whoever, a surprise Mo Brooks, I think that would be one heck of a race.
It would.
Yeah, but I think the governor's race is Tuberville's if he runs, just purely off of name recognition.
Mo Brooks, if you're going to do it, you got to text in and tell us, man. You got to tell us what's up. I haven't had Mo on the show in a long time. Why haven't I had Mo on the show in a long time?
Don't know. I mean, obviously Mo has had his public spats with Trump ever since all that debacle.
Yes.
But who knows? He may enjoy being out of because that Senate race against Britt with him was pretty ugly.
He told me that he is thoroughly enjoying being a granddad and enjoying his lake house.
I don't blame him.
I don't either.
I mean, how can you drag a man off of Gunnersville Lake to go back to D.C. and that
talk
swamp?
About polar opposites.
Yeah.
All right, let me get some text messages because you guys are some texting machines. I mean, like I'm trying to figure out, can I get all these in the next half hour? I mean, my gosh, but I don't mind a bit. What a great problem to have. You guys are an awesome audience. Mike from Florence says the intro and outro music is spot on every time. Thank you, Mike. Good job, JP. Shag Nasty the Atheist saying, how many journalists does Alabama need? And he says, in regards to the Trump address last night, he said, I haven't seen that many single brain-celled bootlickers in one place since I stepped in peanut butter at a dog park. Wow. Shag Nasty, come back to the light, man.
At least that was creative. Somewhat.
Then he also says, let's get Roy Moore back as a senator this time. After all, he has good connections. And I'm not saying the rest of it because that's pretty gross. Yeah, Shag Nasty, keep it decent, man. If I can't read your text on the air, it's not worth sending. Roxanne from Harvest says something in a meme. What is that?
It was Trump put out a Truth Social earlier in the show, basically giving Hamas their last warning.
Cool. All right. You know what? Don't say they haven't been warned. Oh, by the way, don't say he hadn't blown other people up, so he's prone to do it. Take note. Oh, I don't know. How about Soleimani?
Mm-hmm.
Brian from Huntsville says DEI made an election where the Dems were DOA. Nicely. Well done, sir. Jim Bug from Hartsville, thank you, by the way, for that contact information. We will work with it, and we appreciate you very much. Mike from Florence says, highways. What are we doing here? Oh, hang on a second. I can't give out somebody's location for eggs. He said, I've been getting chicken and duck eggs for $3 a dozen. Wow. Okay. He says, Highway 17 on Chisholm Highway, next to the house on the house on the left, before the Tennessee line, chicken and duck eggs, $3 a dozen. Okay. All right. Brian S. from Huntsville says, I agree with Shag Nasty. Those Democrats are one brain cell bootlickers for sure. Ah, ha, ha. Flipping that script, I see. John from Huntsville says, what about Katie Britt for governor? I don't think so. I mean, listen, do I think she's great? Yes. But I don't think she's going to do it. I think she's got her sights set on more in D.C., to be honest with you. I think she's either going to be A, in leadership in the Senate before you know it, or B, she's looking at a major position in a future J.D. Vance administration.
I was just about to say, her and J.D. are good friends. Maybe we see a J.D. Britt ticket in 2028.
Good Lord.
I'd much rather have her in D.C. than down here, I would say.
Yeah, and by the way, I think there's some state connections. She's certainly run a statewide campaign here before, and I think she could certainly govern. But right now, she's proven herself to be fairly adept at D.C., and let's not forget, she was in D.C. before she was in office because she was chief of staff to Senator Shelby. And regardless of how you feel about Shelby, Shelby was a senior member of the U.S. Senate, and she was the chief of staff. So she knows where all the bones are buried in D.C. I think that's where she's going to stay. JT Lacey Springs says, Aldi's today, eggs are $6. Charlene just told me that she saw eggs half a dozen for $4.79 at Publix today. $4.79 for half a dozen. That's highway robbery. Steve from Tennessee checking in says, note that the same politicians who have no tolerance for our guns have endless tolerance for illegals that misuse all of us. Well put, sir. Very well put, and unfortunately true. Harry from Madison says, why is there so little being said about the thousands of military-age Chinese nationals that were reportedly said to have entered our country illegally? Shouldn't that be a priority? I think it is a priority. I think it absolutely is. Now, let's keep in mind right now, the roundups they're doing are against the active conspirators and gang members and criminal elements that have come across the border. So they're going after a certain demographic. But I would say that Tulsi Gabbard, as the director of national intelligence, the fact that she was at the U.S. border today tells me she cares about this stuff, and I think she's game on for it. Paul from Decatur says, hey, Colonel, new winning ticket for the Demon Rats, the next presidential election. It'd be Tampon Tim with Caveman Al. I think there'd be a bloodletting. I do. Between the two of them.
I think that's a great idea. That should be, we may lose that one if they did that. They should run it.
Look up Representative Al Green and see how old he is. I think he's like 78, 79, 80 years old. Of course,
78.
So's Trump. Trump's 78.
Oh, wait, sorry. I think that's Al Green, the singer. Hold on.
Yeah, get Caveman Al, like Congressman Al.
Okay, so Al Green, the representative, is 77. So
okay, great ponytail, Al. Scrolling on down, Gary from Leicester says, this is yesterday's text. Hang on a second. What we got? He says China also. What?
We were talking about the Mexico and Canada tariffs that are going in place.
Oh, that's right. China, 10% tariffs on China.
Yep.
But I think that, right, it did say a headline right before I went on the air they said those tariffs today, that Trump is doing an exception for automobile manufacturers because so much of our industry relies on parts alone out of Canada or Mexico. And then some assembly starts here and then goes down there and finishes. I mean, there's so much just-in-time logistics. Have you ever seen that in the auto industry? It's amazing. And so I think we're looking at, some things are going to wind up having carve-outs.
Well, by the way, the investments too that are coming in, we saw the chip manufacturer coming from Taiwan coming to the U.S. These companies are going to say, well, we don't get tariffed, and there's no tariffs if we make our stuff in America. So then, therefore, they're going to bring their stuff to America. So it's almost like this is going to end up working. There may be a little period where we have to pay more for a little bit, but I'm personally willing to pay a little bit more for eggs if it's going to make our borders more secure and then long term bring companies to make stuff here. So I think that's a more than fair trade off, if you ask me.
That's all right. I think you're right. And we've seen several of them do it already. You're right. Darlene from Decatur checked in earlier, says with regards to last night's speech by Trump. And by the way, we're going to come back from the break in a minute and we're going to play a clip from Trump talking about Doge. But Darlene from Decatur says, my favorite line after his listing of the 130 plus year olds on Social Security, he spoke to RFK and he said, the American people are healthier than I thought, Bobby.
That was great.
He even had one that's listed as being over 300 years old.
Older than the country.
That's like, yeah. He's a Revolutionary War veteran and he fought ably for our country. But the reality is, some people are saying it's a computer glitch. He's making no sense. It's only a computer glitch. How about this? Why do we have computer glitches in something that costs us billions of dollars? Don't we care? Don't we want to track that down? Don't we want to see if this person exists and get their actual birth date and plug it into the system since we're mailing the money every month? And I guarantee you we're going to find some of them aren't real.
Well, I love Bernie Sanders say, no 300-year-old is getting checks. You're right, because they don't exist.
That's right.
Somebody else is in their place.
Thank you very much. All right, take me to a break, JP. We'll come right back. And, yeah, you're going to want to hear a few minutes of Trump reading out what Doge has been finding. It's worth it. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. Hey, we were actually wondering a minute ago off the air, I was talking to JP, and I said, I wonder how Jeff from Indiana's wife is doing. You may remember Jeff from Indiana, who calls in virtually every day, our truck driving buddy. Jeff's wife, Carolyn, in the hospital yesterday. He just texted in, and he said, hey, Phil, update on my wife, Carolyn. She's still in the hospital. Have to stay another day. They're putting on some medications, want to observe, but he said we'd like to thank everybody for their prayers and well wishes. Well, there you go, brother. And listen, if you're still listening, Jeffro, we love you, and Right Side Ruffians are behind you, and blessings on you and Miss Carolyn in the name of Jesus. So there you go. I got to do, by the way, let me get the grades from John real quick. John from Huntsville. The grades are in. Jeff Poor gets an A- for his just okay performance. Yaffe gets an A+ for his amazing Grand Council performance. Phil gets an A+ for his nearly perfect performance, which means today's winner with an A++ is obviously JP, the king of sports. Nice.
So king of Gen Z and king of sports. Just rack them up.
You're just the king of everything. That's what it is. All things king. All right. Hey, listen, there's an audio clip I got right here. I'm going to call up audio clip 2, bud. Audio clip number 2 today. Trump last night in his speech had some big time recitations of the things that Doge has been finding. You see this one I got starting at 1:17? Okay, good. Is that a yes? Okay, so I definitely started at the very beginning. But at one point in his speech, he just started reading off the ridiculous things that they're finding and poking fun at it at the same time. Listen to this for a minute. Like,
it's currently buffering. So
oh, it's buffering now. Is it gonna mess with me?
Hold on, keep talking. I'll pull it back up.
Okay.
Refresh here.
All right, let's refresh the screen on that one. But I'll tell you this: he literally. Is that it? Okay, you ready now? 117.
Just listen to some of the appalling waste we have already identified. $22 billion from HHS to provide free housing and cars for illegal aliens. $45 million for diversity, equity, and inclusion scholarships in Burma. $40 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. Nobody knows what that is. $8 million to promote LGBTQI+ in the African nation of Lesotho, which nobody has ever heard of. $60 million for indigenous peoples and Afro-Colombian empowerment in Central America. $60 million. $8 million for making mice transgender. God. This is real. $32 million for a left-wing propaganda operation in Moldova. $10 million for male circumcision in Mozambique.
Stop a second.
$20 million.
Why are we spending $10 million to circumcise dudes in Mozambique? What in God's name? Who wrote these checks, JP? I mean, who literally sat in their office and goes, well, you know what, we've got some money, what do we do with it? I don't know. How about circumcisions in Mozambique? What?
Some Biden staffer put that check in front of him or another high-ranking official.
You know what else is amazing? Somebody applied for that grant. Hello, USAID, do you have some money? Because we really need some circumcisions in Mozambique. All right, keep playing it.
$1 million for the Arab Sesame Street in the Middle East. It's a program. $20 million for a program. $1.9 billion to recently created Decarbonization of Homes Committee, headed up, and we know she's involved. Just at the last moment, the money was passed over by a woman named Stacey Abrams. Have you ever heard of her? A $3.5 million consulting contract for lavish fish monitoring.
Lavish fish monitoring.
$1.5 million for voter confidence in Liberia. $14 million for social cohesion in Mali. $59 million for illegal alien hotel rooms in New York City. He's a real estate developer. He's done very well. $250,000 to increase vegan local climate action innovation in Zambia.
Stop. vegan, what was it called? Vegan climate, what?
Something like that. I didn't even catch all that.
I don't know
either.
you can fit that much wokeism into one grant. Okay, so it's vegan climate activists in, where was it? Zambia?
Zambia.
God almighty. All right, play.
$42 million for social
It
and
keeps going.
behavior change in Uganda.
It keeps going.
$14 million for improving public procurement in Serbia. $47 million for improving learning outcomes in Asia. Asia's doing very well with learning. You know what we're doing. We should use it ourselves. And $101 million for DEI contracts at the Department of Education.
Stop. $101 million to the U.S. Department of Education for DEI contracts. Let that sink in. Oh, by the way, one of the things we didn't talk about today is that we do believe the Department of Education is in its last throes right now. I don't know if he can truly do away with it entirely, but I think it's about to be scaled down. And can you imagine being the person who got confirmed, this is Linda McMahon, got confirmed to be the secretary for the sole reason of trying to unwind and do away with the department which you're appointed to be in charge of. Put that on your resume. What'd you do? Well, I crushed an entire department of the U.S. government.
Well, he said he wants her to work herself out of a job.
Work herself out of a job, baby. All right, listen. There it is. What a full show. What a great show. Tomorrow's going to be a great one, too, so stay with us. And I will just tell you this. There are more of us than there are of them. God is still on his throne. Y'all stay in the fight. We'll see you tomorrow.